All right, so we got lots and lots to talk about this time. We've got some really cool things. So again, we did do a little point release. So we have a few things that I'll talk about. A lot of these were, again, like special things for one or two libraries that just had some little needs, but a couple of bigger things. So with Hoopla, we're always working with our e-content vendors to make sure that things go more smoothly. So we did find some cases where Hoopla was returning errors and that was causing things to be incorrectly deleted. So we did some extra work to make sure that even if Hoopla has errors that we go ahead and handle those appropriately. We also did some work just for ourselves to make things easier so we can pull individual Hoopla records and get the latest on that. So fun stuff there. With Sierra, we again did this as part of our point release because we wanted to get it out to libraries quickly for testing. So we had for libraries using InReach with Sierra, there were some cases where the status of holds weren't showing properly. And so we went through and made sure that those did display properly. We also did update so that the name of the interlibrary loan system will show when you're viewing holds and checkouts from that InReach system. So like in Colorado, our InReach system is called Prospector. So when it shows the hold, you can see, hey, this is checked out from Prospector rather than from the local library. Just some of those quality of life things that really help patrons to understand how they're using things. Of course, single sign-on is something that we're always working on. So little issues for single sign-on, just some of those fixes as we learn more and more about all of the different single sign-on options and how each individual library has those configured. Then 2307. So we've got, again, lots of great things. Jordan will talk through the Aspen LEDA updates in a little bit. We also have another library coming on with Carl X. So we're learning some new things about that. They've got a login that has barcode and last name as their configuration rather than a barcode and PIN. So that's implemented. We've also done some work, and we'll see this with Koha as well, to make sure that reading history doesn't update if we can detect the user hasn't done any circulation since the last time we checked reading history, we're going to skip that. And what that means is that their last seen date won't update. So something that some libraries have noticed, something that's becoming a bigger deal. So that is corrected now for both CarlX and Koha. So popular things that people have wanted, some other little updates there. E-commerce, we've got a ton of people that really, really, really wanted Square. So Square is now a brand new supported vendor that is available now, and you're able to start using that. With any of the e-commerce, especially with new things, go ahead and please do make sure to do some test transactions before you turn it over to everybody. We just want to make sure that everything is working well with your system, your e-commerce vendor, and your ILS. So if you're wanting to use that, we highly encourage you to do it and highly encourage you to test a few transactions before turning it on for everybody. Just good practice there. We have more Hoopla updates. So Hoopla got a lot of love in the last month or so. So did some more to make Hoopla titles more sortable. This is an imperfect solution. They don't tell us what the non-filing characters are. So we're doing some work to trim off like the words of the and a and an and that kind of thing to make it more sortable. Imperfect system, but definitely better than nothing. We also had several people, and this is kind of hard to demo, but when you are suppressing Hoopla titles due to availability from other sources, so say you have a Hoopla title available in both Overdrive and Hoopla, or in Access 360 and Hoopla, and you're saying we don't want to show the Hoopla title because it costs per checkout. there were times when you could use the facet for Hoopla, and it would still show the ones that it should still show titles where the Hoopla record had been suppressed. So now that facet has been fixed, and that'll be a lot easier. So basically, people would filter by Hoopla and then not actually see titles or formats available. So more good quality of life things. Again, some more inReach functionality. So previously, inReach was only working with Prospector, and we've updated now so that we can use any interlibrary loan URL for linking. So there's some different settings here. Some of these used to be called repeat in Prospector. These have all been renamed to be inReach, to be a little bit more generic. So those are all good quality of life things as we see more and more libraries that are using inReach and some of those other ILL systems. So more good things there. With Koha, like I was saying, we've got the reading history so that we're not setting the last seen date if the user has not circulated anything. Masquerade mode. So this one's cool. So we are to something that's more fun to demo. So we had some requests that said, hey, we really like the masquerade mode, but we want to make sure that our librarians are only doing that from inside the building or from the library itself. We don't want people to be able to do that at home. That's maybe a little bit of just some libraries that expressed some discomfort with that. So we now have the ability to restrict that to specific IP addresses. So to do that, you're going to do two things. So in the library system, we've changed, let's just filter down here to masquerade. So we've changed the allow masquerade mode from just being on and off to either not allowed, which is off, or allowed from all IP addresses, and that was the old default behavior if masquerade was turned on. And we've added a third one now that is allowed from enabled IP addresses. So we can see right now I do have the ability to masquerade, and if I turn that off, we're going to save that. And now I don't have the ability to masquerade. I'm going to go over to our IP address settings, and in order to enable that, so this is my home IP address, so I'm going to turn on allow masquerade. And now I will have the ability to masquerade again. So a good way to kind of control that a little bit more for some of those libraries that want that extra control. So, and those two things do both have to be on. So you can't just say, hey, allow masquerade from the IP address if the library system doesn't allow masquerade, or vice versa. So that will be really cool. Some other fixes. So some little things for Open Archives, Polaris, Sierra. For Symphony, we've had several libraries request the ability to show notes. But part of the problem is when Symphony exports notes, they actually export all the notes. So when we were showing them, if they were turned on previously, you would see your staff notes and your circ notes and your cataloged by notes. And we really just wanted to see the public ones. So what we're doing is when the MARC records that are exported are processed, we're actually stripping out the notes that we don't want to see, so they won't even be available within staff view. So for some of that privacy where you don't want staff information showing to the general public, it is now able to be hidden. What you do need to do in order to show that, you will need to enable both the note and the item record number subfields in the indexing profile. If you need help setting those up, let us know. This won't be turned on by default because a majority of our Symphony libraries wanted this, but not all of them did. So we didn't want to enable this for everybody that might not want it. but super easy to do. That does require indexing to run and to process all of the records. So it'll happen after the deploy, do your full mark export. So really cool. Yeah, Christmas in July. Some other cool things. So these are some of my favorites. So theme updates. So we've, again, had lots of requests for some of these. So we want the ability to choose a default cover for images or for items. So here, if we go to our themes, we're going to go down and we now have a background image for the default covers. So we can choose what we want here. I'm just going to upload an Aspen icon and we'll save that. So now I'm just going to search for garden tools. So here they were using the old cover. And let's see. Oh, these are all the ones. So here we go. Now we're getting some with the Aspen icon. Obviously, this isn't necessarily what we would want to show. We'd probably, for these kind of tools, upload a default cover or a custom image. But a great way to apply some branding or to apply something different. So yeah, so just a different way to do it. There are recommended dimensions. So those are showing here. So we recommend 280 by 280. And those do have the potential to scale because the size of this depending on how long the title is, can be bigger or smaller. So make sure to choose something that can scale okay. In general, it's close to the same size, but it definitely can vary a little bit. So some things to look at as you're doing that. The other request that we had is to be able to change these icons. So we added the ability down here under the format category icons, we can override these. So we have the ability to choose, and you do have to choose both the icon as well as the selected icon, because those are the two different states. And we want to make sure to have both. We don't want to like have the selected be, or the default be your style and the selected be our style. That would get kind of weird. So you do need to choose these in pairs, but you can override any one that you want. So let's just pick some images here. I'm not going to replace all of them right now, but we'll save those. And then as we refresh, now we've got the book icon. So this is our new book icon. And then if we click it, it's going to go into the selected one. So we're really excited to see what people do with that and some of the cool icons y'all do. If you wind up creating some that you are able to share, we'd love to see those and love to be able to provide those to other libraries. But we recognize a lot of those also will go well with your theme and might not translate well to other sites, but we are definitely excited to see what people do with that. Another thing that we did, the last thing I'll talk about today is some third-party registration updates. And Jordan will talk more about this later, but basically we've had a lot of good conversations with a few different vendors, especially e-content vendors that want to be able to do self-registration from their systems through Aspen, just to make sure that we get some real cards. And I'll let Jordan talk about it more later, but we did a bunch of API work in order to enable some of that. This is obviously controllable by the library, so you will need to both make sure that their IP addresses allow API access, and you will need for the library to turn on the third-party registrations. We don't have anybody doing this yet, but there's work in progress. So exciting things for future updates to talk about. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jordan to talk about Aspen Lida.
Yeah, so we had a good number of bug fixes for Aspen Lida this release, and then some new features, nothing that I can really show you on the simulator because you kind of need a real phone for it. So the big new feature that we have is the ability to prompt for notifications. And this is something you see in apps all the time. If you've never had notifications on and you've never told Lida that you don't want notifications, now when you open the app, it will say, hey, do you want to turn on notifications, and take you to that notification screen. The second piece of that is that we have one switch at the top of the page that will turn on all notifications for Lida. So just a little bit easier to turn on notifications and let people know that notifications are an option in Lida without getting in the way of people that just don't want to be bothered with notifications on their phone. Like I said, a few other bug fixes. So I encourage you, if you submitted a bug fix for Lida, to check out those release notes to see if your bug was in there. And with that, I think we are wrapping up Aspen updates in an instant, and I will hand it over to Miranda to welcome our new libraries.